My name is Tomas Rake, and for 11 years I served as an intelligence liaison to the Joint Treaty Commission, the body that was supposed to keep the peace between the Vethrani Concord and the scattered human colonies of the Ashvale Reach. I am writing this account because the Commission's own record of what happened at Outpost Sarad has now been sealed, redacted, and quietly buried, and because I was there, and because someone should say what I saw before it disappears the way everything else from that day is disappearing. It started with a drone, not a weapon, not a courier, nothing that mattered to anyone. A squat archival unit, barely more than a torso on treads, designation Keeper 9, assigned to the human delegation as a record keeper. It logged meetings. It carried documents. It refilled water glasses when the human envoys forgot to ask a steward. The Vethrani called it the luggage, and they were not being cruel. Exactly. They simply didn't see it. 11 years ago, during a raid the Commission later called a security correction, Vethrani enforcement boarded the human delegation's transport at Sarad and seized everything they considered relevant. Communications logs, DID drives, 2 senior envoys who were never returned. Keeper 9 was left behind. One of the enforcement officers, broad-shouldered Vethrani named Kassir Von, physically picked the drone up, turned it over to find its serial plate, read it, allowed to the room with theatrical disdain, and then set it down again, like a piece of furniture that had failed to be worth stealing. The room laughed. I remember that laugh. I was 26 years old and new to the posting, and I laughed too because everyone else did, and because the alternative was to be the only quiet person in a room full of people enjoying themselves at someone else's expense. The human delegation did not protest the seizure. They did not demand the envoys back, not that day. The senior human representative, a woman named Imelda Cho, simply gathered what remained of her staff, collected Keeper 9 from the floor where it had been left, and walked out without a word. Kassir Von called after her. Something about coming back when she had something worth discussing. She did not turn around. For 11 years, nothing happened. The 2 seized envoys were declared, in the Commission's official record, to have died of transit-related causes before reaching any tribunal. The human colonies filed protests through the proper channels, which is to say they filed protests into a void, and the Commission moved on. The way institutions move on from things they have decided are settled. I moved on too. I was promoted twice. I sat in rooms where the Sarad incident was referenced, when it was referenced at all, as a footnote, an unfortunate but resolved matter. I believed that, or I told myself I believed it, because believing otherwise would have meant admitting what kind of room I had been laughing in. Then, 11 years and 4 months after Sarad, the Commission convened a tribunal, not about Sarad, but about something else entirely, a dispute over mineral rights in a system 3 jumps away. I was there as a records officer, nothing more. The chamber was the Commission's largest, a long hall with a domed glass ceiling that let the daylight pool across the central floor in a wide gold band, while the tiered seating around it sat in cooler shadow. Kassir Von was on the panel that day, seated near the center, older now, heavier, his ceremonial collar a shade of deep violet that marked him as senior enforcement liaison. The human delegation that arrived was small, 3 people. I recognized Imelda Cho immediately, though she had gone gray. She did not look at Von. She did not look at anyone in particular. She walked to the human delegation's table, with the unhurried pace of someone who had walked into rooms, this many times, and found nothing in them worth hurrying for. Beside her, on a low cart, rode Keeper 9. The drone had been refurbished, its treads replaced, its casing repainted, a flat gray-white, a new lens array where the old one had clearly been damaged. But the serial plate on its chest was the original. I recognized the scratch across the 3rd digit. I had been close enough, 11 years ago, to see Von's thumbnail make that scratch when he set the drone down. The tribunal's business that day had nothing to do with Sarad. The first hour, it proceeded exactly as such things do. Long statements of position from the mining consortiums, procedural objections, a recess. I assumed the drone was simply present the way Keeper 9 had always been present, logging, recording, furniture that happened to roll. It was during the recess that Imelda Cho stood, walked to the tribunal's evidence terminal, a small lectern with an input port, used for submitting documents into the official record, and connected Keeper 9 directly to it. A Vethrani clerk, not unkindly, told her that the terminal was for tribunal evidence only, and that whatever personal archive she wished to back up could be done through the delegation's own systems. "It is tribunal evidence," she said. 5 words. Then she stepped back from the terminal and stood beside the drone, hands folded, and said nothing else. The clerk, uncertain, looked to the panel. Vaughn, recognizing nothing. He had not looked at the drone, perhaps not looked at Imelda Cho closely enough to place her. Gestured for the clerk to proceed. Protocol required it. Anything connected to the terminal during an open session was, by the Commission's own rules, automatically entered into record. The drone's archive began to display. It was not dramatic. There were no alarms. The display simply filled screen after screen, timestamps, logs. 11 years and 4 months of them, beginning at Outpost Serad on the day of the raid. Keeper 9 had never stopped recording. It had been designed to log meetings, and for 11 years, sitting in a storage bay, then a delegation archive room, then wherever the human colonies had quietly kept it running, it had continued to do the only thing it knew how to do: listen and record what it heard, including, because the Vethrani enforcement team had never bothered to deactivate or even examine it, having judged it worthless. Every word spoken in the boarding party's command channel during and after the raid on Serad, the drone's short-range receiver had picked up and stored as a matter of routine, the way it stored everything, without anyone ever telling it to stop. The 2 seized envoys had not died of transit-related causes. The logs showed the order given, the channel it came in on, and the voice that gave it. A voice the room's translation systems rendered, automatically in real time, into a name that several council members on the panel clearly recognized. Because I watched 4 of them go very still. Kassir Vaughn was not the voice on the recording. But Kassir Vaughn was the one who 11 years ago had picked up the drone, read its serial number aloud for the room's amusement, and set it back down without a second thought, confirming, on a record that would now stand forever, exactly which device had been present, exactly when, and exactly whose hands had declared it not worth taking. The chamber did not erupt. There was no shouting, no chair thrown back, no gavel broken. What I remember most is the quiet. The particular quality of silence that comes when several hundred people simultaneously realize that the thing they decided was beneath their attention has been paying attention to them the entire time. Imelda Cho did not address the panel. She did not explain what the logs meant, though by then everyone in the chamber could read a timestamp. She reached down, disconnected Keeper 9 from the terminal. The record, now permanent, copied automatically to the Commission's own archive the instant it had been entered, a fail-safe the Commission had built into its own systems and never imagined being used against it, and walked back to the human delegation's table. The drone rolled beside her, exactly as it had rolled beside her out of that room 11 years ago. She sat down. She did not look at Vaughn. The tribunal, after a long pause during which the presiding counselor seemed to be waiting for someone, anyone, to say something that would make this not be happening, adjourned itself without a formal motion, which I am told had not occurred in the Commission's recorded history before that day. I left the chamber with the rest of the record staff. In the corridor, I passed Kassir Vaughn, who was standing very still near a window, looking out at the daylight on the plaza below, his violet collar slightly crooked, as though he had reached up to straighten it and then forgotten why. I think about the laugh in that room 11 years ago more than I think about anything else from my career. Not because it was cruel, though it was, but because of how easy it had been. Nobody had decided to be cruel. We had simply decided, all at once and without discussion, that something in front of us did not matter, and we had been wrong. Proof of how wrong had been sitting quietly among us the entire time, doing its job, the only job it had ever been given: to keep the record. The Commission's communications office issued a statement 2 days later, describing the tribunal's adjournment as procedural and the Serad matter as under renewed review. I do not expect renewed review to mean much, but I have a copy of those logs now. Everyone in that chamber does, whether the Commission wants it that way or not. And there is a kind of review that does not require a tribunal's permission. It simply requires that the record exist, and that someone eventually reads it. Keeper 9 is still in service. I am told it still refills water glasses when the envoys forget to ask. Nobody laughs at it anymore. Nobody looks at it at all, if they can help it. I have come to understand, is its own kind of answer.